Right. Hello, everyone. This is our second podcast in this series, and Andy and I are going to be talking today about the basics of financial independence and early retirement. So we're going to run through a few basic topics, and then later on in the podcast, we'll go into these in much more detail. But if you have any questions, do add them to the comments. Right, Andy, kick us off.
Okay, so the basis of what we're doing is we want to reach financial independence, which is a state of being work optional. It's having enough wealth that you don't have to go to work if you don't want to.
Yeah, I think we all know people who have maybe retired early or reached financial independence, and some of them may still be doing volunteer jobs or they may be helping out somewhere or that kind of thing. But it's the point at which you don't need to keep having a job to pay for your food and shelter.
So the way that we do this is by owning investments which generate enough income to cover our spending. How
Yeah,
long this takes does depend on how hard you save, on how low you keep your overheads, and a bit of luck with regards to how the market behaves.
yes. So a good example here is if you can manage to save half your salary and put that by somewhere in investments or pension, obviously you're going to reach financial independence much more quickly than if you can only afford to save 10% of your salary. But it doesn't really matter because they're both aiming to get to the same place. And if you can also reduce your spending, that always helps. But these are all just details on the main path to financial independence.
Anecdotally, in my experience, people who go for it often seem to take about 10 years if they're starting from a standing start. In my own case, I took 8 years, but that wasn't quite from a standing start.
Yeah, and I think in my case, it probably took me about 20 years. And I gradually kind of dawned on me what was going on. And but that was, having a family, moving around the country, and doing a lot of other stuff with life continuing in the background.
Absolutely. Um, so everyone's scared of investing. So one thing we try to do with this is to reduce risk. And an easy way to reduce risk when we don't know much about investing is to try and just buy the whole market using index tracker funds, which means that we get an average return.
Yeah, so what we're suggesting is that you don't try and buy individual shares, or you don't listen to someone who says that a share is going to go up or go down or something like that. We just suggest that you can buy a simple fund which contains all of the shares in the market or in the whole world.
These days, you can invest using what we call do it yourself investment platforms, which have low fees and they avoid all the costs of financial advisors.
Yeah, I think in the olden days, people may be aware that if you wanted to have some investments, you would give them to somebody else, like a stockbroker. They would buy and sell for you. They would maybe suggest some changes, and they would generally take a pretty hefty cut for doing that for you. Whereas today, there are plenty of platforms that you can do, which are online websites and apps where you can invest yourself. You can learn how to invest. It's not very complicated. And those platforms don't charge you very much at all. And also, they contain funds which are often very, very cheap compared to some of the funds that the advisors would recommend.
Yes, within these platforms, we would make use of tax wrapper accounts. These are things like ISAs or self invested personal pensions, which protect these savings from tax and give us boosts in various ways. So we're always looking for whatever efficiency we can gain by just playing the game, really, seeing what's on offer. We make use of index funds because they also avoid the costs of active fund managers. So that's another little win.
Yeah, so an index fund is just a fund that contains lots and lots of shares across a whole market or across the whole world. And then a computer makes sure that all of those shares represent pretty much what's out there, and there's no person involved choosing which shares to buy and which ones to sell. And as Andy says, the tax part of this is very important. Putting money in your pension is probably the most efficient way of preparing for your financial independence or retirement. Obviously, you can't get to the money until a bit later in life, but we'll cover that when we come to it.
We have always said that the word pension is possibly the most boring word in the English language. And so anytime we say pension, we do want in our heads to put in brackets free money after that, because that kind of revs things up and says, actually, it's probably worth dealing with this boredom just to have that little bonus, because everyone likes free money.
Yeah, I like that very much. Yeah.
So the way we approach this is to buy investments steadily each month from spare money from earnings.
Yes, I mean, this goes back to what we said at the start, where each month you aim to have a little bit of money spare from your salary or from both your salaries if you're doing it with a partner. And then each month that money hopefully automatically gets squirreled away into some investments and it sits there and gradually grows over time.
So that side of it's simple enough, but there are a few things to be cautious about. The market will be volatile. Everyone's scared of the stock market. The volatility is perfectly normal. And once you start working on a longer time scale, this problem really fades away.
Yes, and one of the ways that you can address the volatility and the price going up and down is that you buy into this market every month when your salary comes in. So you don't need to know whether the market's gone up, gone down, or gone sideways. You just keep on putting in a chunk of your salary each month, and then that chunk gradually grows over time. And sometimes that chunk might buy some more shares if the price is down. Sometimes it might buy fewer shares if the price is up, but you don't really need to know about that. And over time, it all smooths out.
I think this fear of volatility frightens people and leads them into the arms of the banks and financial advisors who end up making more money out of it than you do, or into overcautious investments like premium bonds, which basically give you no return.
Yes, Andy and I have both met plenty of people who have come to us for financial advice, and they have a huge amount in cash or savings accounts or premium bonds or cash ISAs and that kind of thing. And while it's better than putting the money under your mattress, it's not going to lead to much growth. And using those kind of accounts isn't probably going to help you reach financial independence.
You using that term financial advice makes me think we should say we are not financial advisors. We are amateur investors who've done quite well. We've retired through using this model. But anything we give you is trying to improve your education rather than financial advice in terms of regulated advice to buy a particular product.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think the next point is that um, we do need to be careful of people who will try and offer you financial products and try and suggest things to you and have all sorts of ideas for you. And we would strongly recommend that you avoid anyone who offers you any of that kind of thing.
And that goes for us as well. If you get an idea from us, by all means, please go and test it elsewhere. Go and find corroboration. Reassure yourself that it's the right thing to do. Don't take our word for it, because everyone should be rightly cynical about anything they're told.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're aiming for is to have this podcast as part of our community, as we said in our last podcast when we talked about how it fits in. And it's nice to have a chance to talk to other people and go through some of these ideas. And I think once you discuss them with other people, you get more confident in your own ideas.
So, looking back at this method of investing, why this works when we look under the bonnet, the earnings of those companies that you own shares in will drive up the price of the shares over time, and in turn, drive up the price of the index fund that contains all those shares. So the prices do wobble about, but ultimately they're tethered to the earnings of the companies. So long term, that has grown at something like 6 to 7% per year after you've taken inflation out.
Yeah, and I think we've discussed this quite a lot before, quite length. What you're buying is you're buying small shares in lots and lots of companies around the world. Now, all of those companies are doing business. Most of them will be doing business profitably. And what they do is they take their profits and they invest them back in the business. And the following year, they do a little bit better. And as they do that, the price of their shares goes up. Now, if you hold enough of those companies for long enough, you will get the average overall growth of all of those companies. And yes, there will be some fluctuations and the prices will wobble. And yes, some of them might be in different currencies and the currency prices might wobble. But if you go back 40 years on a global index in British pounds and using British inflation, you do see an average return of somewhere between 6 and 7%.
So during these years of saving, or as we call it, the accumulation phase, if you're not taking those earnings of the companies out each year, this means that your wealth is going to compound to grow faster.
Yes, one of the good things about having a pension, for example, is you can't get at that income from the companies. So you buy the shares in the pension, and the share price hopefully keeps going up, and you'll see your pension increasing in value, and you're not tempted to take that money out because you can't get to it. There are other investments like ISAs where you might be able to get to the money, but what we're saying is if you can leave it where it is, it's helping to grow, and that will lead you to reach financial independence more quickly.
So the other side of this game is what we call decumulation, which is a very unwieldy word. But basically, it means that you're drawing upon your portfolio for your income. Now, research shows that you can pull in the region of 4% a year safely throughout a retirement. There's plenty of argument over the exact safe figure here, though.
Yes. So what we mean by that is if you want to have an income of £10,000 a year today, then you'd probably need something like 25 times that amount or £250,000. Now, lots of people will have their own opinions about exactly what percentage you can take out, but we aim to say that 4% is a generally good figure to aim at while you're saving up.
Now, that sounds like a really tall order to save 25 times a year's spending, but that's not actually how much you have to feed in because there are a couple of boosts that work to help you here. You're getting that pension tax relief, and you're also getting all the help of the growth and compounding.
Yes, and obviously it depends on how old you are and how early you start. And everyone wishes they'd started all this a bit earlier. But if you've got 20 years, then time alone is going to be doing a lot of the work for you. The important thing is to start as early as you can, put something by. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but the more you can put by, and the longer you have, the more it'll grow, and the more you'll have at the end of it. And at the same time, if you can reduce your spending, either today or when you're financially independent, you'll need less money to live on and you'll need less money invested.
So that was just a very rough overview of things. There's going to be concepts in here that are new to people, and we don't expect that this will have thoroughly explained it all in full depth. So we're gonna loop back to all of these topics in the future, and so stick with us basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're saying now is that once you reach that point of financial independence or early retirement, and you're drawing down 4% or something about that of your pot, then that should last you until the end of your life. So if there are two of you and you've done your numbers and you're pulling out 4%, you should both be happy until the end of your life, and hopefully not run out of money by then. I think we
Woohoo,
just
freedom.
I think we just need to do a plug for our like and subscribe now, don't we?
Absolutely. We're planning on releasing on a regular schedule, and our later episodes in this podcast are intended to be more of a magazine format, that an episode will have a number of different segments in it. If you want to receive notifications through whatever platform you're listening to this on, please like and subscribe and show the platform that you're interested in us so that it shows you more of our content.
And we look forward to talking to you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye for now.